I can remember a time when I was a freshman in high school, and it was one of the most influential moments of my high school career. It was baseball tryouts. What's interesting is that I played baseball almost my whole life, but when I went into freshman baseball tryouts and I was really excited about playing for my high school team, I can remember that I did not pick up a baseball or a bat or a glove for months leading up to tryouts. I was pretty cocky. I was pretty, no, I'm pretty good. I know what I'm doing. And I went into baseball tryouts and I was like by far the worst kid out there. Tryouts were indoors because it was the winter in Indiana. It was dark outside. I remember that. And so they were doing ground balls in the gym floor. And I remember missing so many of them. I mean, routine ground balls. I remember thinking, I'm a pretty good baseball player, but I am awful tonight. And it all of a sudden caught up to me when I realized my name was on the first list of cuts. And I remember thinking, this didn't go the way I thought. And then I looked at whose names didn't get cut. And I noticed that one of my friends made it, and I knew he was excited, and I wanted to be excited for him, but I wasn't. I was pretty jealous. Sometimes jealousy can lead us to be agitated at someone, and it's interesting because that someone rarely knows that you're agitated at them. They don't know, because it's inside of your head and inside of your heart and your mind that you're upset with them. They don't know that they've done something wrong. In fact, they haven't done anything wrong. But like we said last week, comparison starts with our eyes, our ears, our senses, right? And then it kind of creeps into our emotions, and then it creeps into our heart. And if we let comparison, or in this case jealousy, creep into our heart, that can become a very dangerous thing to do. What happens, at least in my life, maybe in yours as well, a jealousy begins to change the way we see people, and then it also changes the way we see ourselves. So then what happens after we harbor jealousy? Because we think maybe this isn't so harmful. Maybe it's not such a big deal. But what happens when we harbor jealousy, there's a couple things that might happen. The first thing I think about is how we distance ourselves from people that we are jealous of. And they don't know why, because they don't know what they did wrong. Again, they didn't do anything wrong. Why is this person distancing, right? Why are they giving me the Heisman? I didn't do anything wrong. We distance ourselves. We tend to talk bad behind people's backs. That's gossip. That's backbiting. That's not good. No one, and I mean no one, likes people talking behind their backs. So why do we do it to other people? Maybe if you're like me, you also do this. This is so bad. I'm just gonna come clean. We secretly make lists of all the other things that we don't like about that person. Is it just me? Is it you too? You start to have even invisible conversations where you're dominating that person. This is what happens when we harbor jealousy. We go nuts. Our emotions are out of check and out of line, and then our mind and all of that stuff starts to turn bitter. And then all of a sudden what happens is you're not good with them and they're not good with you. They're feeling the animosity. Maybe they're distancing themselves from you. Now, all of this started because of something that didn't happen or wasn't said. There was no insults. We were jealous of someone. We started to feel something which made us act a certain way, and now not only have we distanced ourselves from them, but they are feeling some kind of way about us, and they are distancing, all because one little emotion, one little spark inside of us that we didn't put out. So how do we deal with that? What are we supposed to do about this? This story makes me think of David and Saul in 1 Samuel. Remember, we meet David. He shows up to the battle. I mean, everyone's favorite story, David and Goliath. Shows up to the battle, all the Israelites versus all the Philistines, and they're going to send out 1 versus 1. And the Israelites are shaking in their boots, and David walks up with bread and cheese for the guys, to eat, which, by the way, that's not battle food, right? Give me a steak. Give me, something. But he walks up with food, and then he sees the battle as it's happening, and he has God's perspective on it, and he says, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he would come against the armies of the Lord, right? We know the story. He goes on the battlefield, he fights, he wins. It's amazing. But then the rest of 1 Samuel also talks about all the different things that David does that's good. He's not even king yet, but he's being celebrated like he's the king. Saul, who was the king, he was put in place of king because he was big and he was strong, he was handsome, he was a warrior, he was a fighter. He was was going to bring the military power to Israel, but he didn't have the character that David had. So what happens when David walks through the streets and is celebrated by all these people? There's one specific verse that I want to look at today. 1 Samuel 18 verse 7, David is walking through the streets, and the women sang to one another as they celebrated, Saul has struck down his thousands and David his 10,000s. First of all, if I'm a teenage guy and I'm walking through the streets and women are singing my praises, and women are singing my praises more than the king's praises, feeling pretty good about myself. But flip the script and you've got the king standing there who's watching these women celebrate David more than him. And what happens? The very next verse, verse 8, Saul was very angry, and this saying displeased him. And then verse 9 says, Saul eyed David from that day on. Did David do anything wrong? Absolutely not. In fact, David was operating out of a sense of character, but also boldness. His trust and his faith in the Lord allowed him to do some amazing things. He didn't do anything wrong, but Saul was jealous, and Saul eyed him from that day on. He was angry. Saul could have been happy for David. Saul could have even, if he was a good leader, he could have put David in a place of influence. And you think about all the opportunities that Saul had to make this a win, but his emotions took over, his jealousy took over, and he began to harbor that. He became angry, and if you know the story of David and Saul, the rest of 1 Samuel, Saul spent his time trying to kill David. There's a proverb that says it this way, Proverbs 14 verse 30, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Rots the bones, my goodness. It's inside of us. That's the thing. Envy rots the bones. Jealousy inside of us that's harbored eats us away from the inside out. So here's a couple things that you need to be thinking about when you harbor jealousy. Jealousy of a friend can rot, destroy, and ruin us. Jealousy can destroy that friendship. Jealousy can then cause us to doubt our own talents, achievements, gifts. Jealousy can begin to rot how we feel about ourselves. And then jealousy can also kill our sense of peace or our sense of joy. Remember, comparison is the thief of joy. Maybe the most dangerous thing that I just mentioned is that this jealousy, when it gets harbored inside of us, it doesn't just destroy the friendship, which is awful enough, but even way worse, it rots how we feel about ourselves. It actually damages our self-image. One of the things that I think that we need to start being better at as humans, as Christians, Christ followers, this is actually going to be your challenge for this week, something I want you to think about, maybe a discipline to add into your life, is learn how to celebrate others when you're tempted to be jealous of them. And it's tough, right? It's not easy. In fact, all the things that are disciplines in this world are disciplines because they're hard to do. Right? I don't want to wake up early and work out. I don't want to eat healthy. I don't want to read my Bible. I don't want to clean my room. I don't want to stop and study. We don't want to do these things because they're disciplines, but they make our lives better, but it's not easy to just sit and do them. So when you celebrate others, you almost trick yourself into not being jealous of them. And I want to tell you, I'm not into trickery. I'm not into gimmicks. But let me relate it to something else. I have learned that when I am in a state of depression or in a spiritual downturn or backsliding, that I don't feel like praising God, but I have learned that literally in getting in my car and singing at the top of my lungs worship songs, my heart starts to warm back up for the things of God. Is it possible that maybe praising God verbally out loud, right, volume cranked, we're singing praises to God, changes our mind about our circumstances? Is it also true that maybe literally celebrating someone else would help your heart heal towards them? It would help to push away that jealousy and would help you to lift up the priorities that you actually do want, because you want a healthy self-image. All of us do. None of us want to feel bad about ourselves. None of us want to rot out from our bones. And all of us want healthy friendships. And all of us we truly want to celebrate our friends. So why don't we? Let's let that be a challenge today. As we think about how we battle comparison and jealousy and envy, let's start in our vertical relationship with the Lord. Maybe it's time to just put on some praise music and literally sing at the top of your lungs. And as you're talking about your horizontal relationships with people that maybe you're jealous of, why don't you shoot them a text and just say, hey, really good job. You made the team. You got a good grade on that test. Hey, I just want to congratulate you. You're killing it. And I think what'll happen is that your relationships will be more at peace instead of more at tension, more at odds with each other. And I think that maybe your self-image will start to improve as well. As we lift up our Heavenly Father in song and as we celebrate each other and help each other out, I think it'll be a big help.